Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that a lot of players tend to overlook in The King is Watching visit. The spells. Yeah, I know, they're easy to forget when you're busy managing your units and upgrades, but trust me, these little one-time effects can totally flip the script in a tough battle. Whether you're clutching through a boss fight or just need that extra edge in a heated moment, spells can make or break your run. Now, here's the catch. You can only equip 6 different spells at once. So even though you might collect a bunch, choosing the right ones for your build is key. In this video, we're breaking down the best spells in the game, not just the flashy ones, but the ones that actually help you survive. And before you ask, yeah, we're leaving out those boss-specific spells like Pyre or Dispel Invisibility. They're more like tools for specific fights than game changers. Ready to find out which spells deserve a permanent spot in your loadout? Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking spells in The King is Watching. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching! The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Armageddon, Banish, Freeze, Health Boost, Slow Zone, and Summon Infernals. Oh boy, here come the why did I even bother unlocking this spells? You know the type. Technically useful, but in practice, you're better off flinging pebbles and shouting loudly. Welcome to the D tier, where the magic is real. But the disappointment is even more real. Let's talk about the bottom of the barrel spells in The King is Watching. First up, Armageddon. Sounds epic, right? I mean, come on, 25 meteorites raining from the sky. But here's the catch. They fall randomly across a wide area, and each one only deals 50 damage. And because enemies tend to clump up, you'd much rather use a spell that actually targets those clusters, instead of playing galactic whack-a-mole. It's like ordering an airstrike and hitting absolutely everything except the enemy camp. Next is Banish, and oh boy, this one's a thinker. It removes all of your friendly units from the battlefield for 30 seconds. Sure, they come back with 6 crystals each, but while they're on vacation, you're kind of alone. If your strategy is retreat and hope for the best, maybe it's time to rethink your spellbook. Honestly, there are better ways to farm crystals that don't involve ghosting your own army mid-battle. Freeze is up next, and listen, it does have its moment. Freezing every enemy in an area for 8 seconds can be a lifesaver. Once. But that's kind of all it does. It's the magical equivalent of hitting the snooze button when your house is on fire. You'll delay the disaster, but you're still going to need a real solution in a few seconds. And finally, we've got Summon Infernals. Now don't get too excited. Yes, it calls forth a powerful demon, randomly picked as either flying or ground-based. But here's the catch. They're temporary units, meaning they last for just one fight. Cool? Yes. Game-changing? Not even close. It's like hiring a dragon for one night only. Great party trick. Terrible long-term investment. So yeah, if these spells are all you've got, then by all means, cast away. But if you're looking to dominate the battlefield, maybe. Keep flipping through that spellbook. The spells in this tier are in order from top left to bottom right. Bladefall, Evasion, Landmine, and Turn to Sheep. The C tier spells. The magical equivalent of a lukewarm cup of tea. Not bad enough to throw out, but definitely not your first pick when the world's ending. These are the spells that you might keep around just in case, or because you forgot to unassign them. Let's break down the meh could be worse section of the spellbook in The King is Watching. Let's start with Bladefall, which drops 15 blades in a horizontal line, each dealing 60 damage. Sounds deadly, right? Except enemies in this game don't exactly form neat conga lines. They swarm, they scatter, they zigzag. Basically, they do everything except politely line up for your spinning knives. But hey, if you're fighting a chunky boss like the Graveyard Golem, Bladefall suddenly goes from A to okay, not bad. One of those rare cases where big target equals big value. Next is Evasion, and let me tell you, it wants to be good. It gives your troops a 35% chance to dodge all incoming damage for 8 seconds, which is a respectable duration. But here's the catch. When things get really hectic, that 65% chance to get smacked anyway still stings. You'll probably cast it, watch your troops bob and weave for a second, and then cry as they fall like dominoes. Best used when you know a big wave is about to crash, just to buy yourself a few more moments of chaos. Landmine is one of those spells that sounds cooler than it actually is. It plants 3 mines somewhere in the targeted area, and each explodes for 90 damage when stepped on. But, and this is important, you have no control over where those little suckers land. Sometimes it's genius. Other times, it's like placing mousetraps in the neighbor's yard and hoping the rats take a detour. Pro tip: use prophecies to predict enemy movement and make this spell actually feel tactical instead of just hopeful. And then we have the wonderfully ridiculous Turn to Sheep. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Up to 5 enemies are magically transformed into adorable little sheep that run away for 3 seconds. It's silly, it's fun, and weirdly effective for splitting up enemy groups. But let's be real, 3 seconds goes by so fast, you'll barely have time to enjoy your woolly victory. Still, if you need a breather to regroup or stack some cooldowns, it might just save your royal bacon. All in all, these spells are like the quirky side characters of your arsenal. Not useless, just situational. They can work, they can shine, but only under the right circumstances. And if you're relying on them to win a battle, well, may the king truly be watching, and maybe laughing a little. The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Blinding Light, Deforestation, Fireworks, Ground Fire, Meteorite, Moonshine Barrel, Roots, Scarecrow, and Weakness. You know that feeling when something isn't amazing, but it gets the job done? That's B tier in The King is Watching. These are your dependable mid-tier spells, the kind you won't brag about, but also won't regret using. They're like a solid pair of boots. Not glamorous, but they'll carry you through the mud. Let's break them down, one by one, starting off with Blinding Light, a simple, effective 4-second stun in the spell area. Sure, bosses only get stunned half the time, but for standard waves, this spell is great at buying time or disrupting a tough push. If your crossbowmen don't have stun upgrades yet, this spell becomes even more valuable. It's the kind of, let me just pause the apocalypse for a second tool you'll be glad to have. Next up, Deforestation. This one's for all the players who love destroying nature for profit. Cast it, and every tree in the area explodes into 40 wood each. But there's a 20% chance an Ent will pop out instead, and let's just say they're not happy about losing their treehouse. It's a risk-reward spell, best used between waves when you've got time to slap together a structure, and maybe fight off a leafy monster or two. Fireworks is exactly what it sounds like. Flashy, fast, and gone before you know it. It gives a 50% temporary boost to production speed, which is handy for quick surges in resources. The catch? It's over too fast to stand on its own. But if you combo it with Leonid's Unlimited Gaze, now that's a party worth throwing. Best used when you've got a lot of idle workers ready to go. Ground Fire brings 6 seconds of 30 damage per second to any enemy foolish enough to stand in the red zone. It's nothing fancy, but sometimes you don't need fancy. You just want to watch things burn. Solid pick when you want reliable area damage with a little tactical placement involved. Now let's talk about Meteorite, a single target blast of 110 damage. Feels good to land but requires a bit of foresight. Since it takes a moment to fall, you'll want to aim ahead of where enemies are walking. Think of it like trying to hit a running goblin with a bowling ball. From space. Not always easy, but satisfying when it connects. Moonshine Barrel is one of those spells that feels like a joke, until it works. It deals 75 damage, slows enemies, and makes them inebriated. Yes, drunk. Wobbly enemies deal less damage and are easier to kite or finish off. The slow helps your units stay alive longer, and that extra splash of damage is just the cherry on top of a very weird cocktail. Then there's Roots, which is sneakily strong. It deals 60 immediate damage, pushes enemies outward, and applies 56 poison damage over time. The push can be a double-edged sword. It disrupts enemy formations, but might also make follow-up spells harder to land. Still, it's great for scattering tightly packed enemies and finishing off stragglers with the poison tick. Scarecrow is one of the more creative B tiers. You drop a spooky little dummy on the battlefield, and when it gets destroyed, it explodes for 60 damage. It also acts as a diversion, which is especially useful on maps like Graveyard. If your Ruin Scouts need a few extra seconds to escape, the Scarecrow can draw attention like a haunted billboard. We also have Weakness, which is more subtle in its power. For 6 seconds, enemies in the area have their movement and attack speed reduced by 30%. That might not sound huge, but trust me, it adds up. Slower enemies equal longer survival equals fewer reinforcements needed. It's one of those spells that makes your army feel just durable enough to hold the line. So, Are these spells going to win the game on their own? Probably not. But used smartly, they'll support your army, disrupt your enemies, and give you just enough breathing room to pull off the big plays. They're the unsung heroes of the spellbook. Never flashy, but always useful. The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Chain Lightning, Fissure, Healing Pool, Immortality, Incineration, Legendary Fireworks, Necromancy, Poison Puddle, and Wrath. These are the spells that make you go, oh yeah, this is why I'm the one with the crown. Welcome to the A tier in The King is Watching, where magic isn't just useful, it's borderline unfair, for the enemy of course. These spells can shift momentum, wipe out hordes, and pull victory out of the jaws of disaster. Let's dive into the elite lineup you definitely want in your spell rotation. First off, Chain Lightning, the spell equivalent of setting off a domino effect, but with zapping. It deals 75 damage to all enemies in the initial area, then jumps to nearby enemies again and again until everyone's had a turn. With a few damage upgrades, this thing can clear entire waves of weak or mid-tier enemies by itself. It's flashy, satisfying, and genuinely devastating. Just cast it in a crowd and watch the sparks fly. Then there's Fissure, the dramatic diva of destruction. It sends a crackling, ground-splitting shockwave down a vertical line, dealing a brutal 220 damage. And guess what? Enemies love to line up in vertical stacks. This makes Fissure perfect for thinning out hordes, or softening up bulkier enemies before your army finishes them off. It's the magical equivalent of telling enemies to form a neat single-file line, and then deleting it. Healing Pool is next, and don't underestimate it. Healing in this game is about as common as a polite demon, so a 3-second area that heals for 70 health per second is gold. Use it to keep expensive units alive, or during messy fights when the outcome is on a knife's edge. Just place it carefully. No healing the enemy, unless you like regrets. Now, Immortality is as dramatic as it sounds. For 4 glorious seconds, your troops cannot drop below 1 HP. It's basically shouting, "You shall not die," into the face of certain doom. But the clock's ticking. You need to either finish the fight or set up a counterattack fast, because when that buff ends, your army might just blink out of existence. Use wisely. Speaking of dramatic, Incineration is the spell that comes in hot, literally. It drops 600 damage in a small area, enough to vaporize most regular enemies and seriously wound bosses. It's an amazing opener, or a cheeky way to trigger a boss phase change while your units are safely tucked away in the barracks. Explosive, efficient, and kind of evil. We love it. Next we have Legendary Fireworks, which takes the concept of resource bursts and cranks it up. It doubles your production speed briefly. No fluff, just fast results. Combine it with Unlimited Gaze for a mega economy surge. Perfect for when you want to go from broke to booming in the blink of an eye. Necromancy is where things get spooky and strategic. It lets you raise up to 6 corpses as temporary undead troops, with their tier depending on what died. The later in the game, the better it gets, especially on graveyard maps where cemetery traitor buffs make your undead even scarier. It's like your army died and came back with attitude. Up next, Poison Puddle. This 9-second area of effect spell deals 24 damage per second, which adds up to 216 total if enemies stay in the goo. That's the trick. Placement is everything. Drop it right at your battle line, where enemies naturally linger, and watch their health melt like ice cream in a desert. It's silent, deadly, and extremely satisfying. And finally, Wrath. For 6 seconds, it boosts your unit's attack and moves speed by 30%. It doesn't sound flashy at first glance, but cast this on a squad of swordsmen or ranged attackers, and it becomes an unstoppable momentum tool. It turns a good push into a lethal one, especially if you time it with reinforcements or unit abilities. So yeah, A-tier spells aren't just strong, they're strategic. These are the tools that reward timing, planning, and a little bit of showmanship. If you're playing to win, and let's be real, of course you are, then these are the spells you want in your royal toolkit. The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Last Stand and Tornado. You've made it to the big leagues. The S-tier spells in The King is Watching aren't just good, they're game-changing, run-saving, boss-ending miracles of magical design. These are the kind of spells you don't just cast, you unleash them, usually while cackling like a maniac because you know the enemy is about to have a very bad day. They're rare, they're powerful, and if you get your hands on one, oh boy, you better build your whole strategy around it. Let's start with Last Stand, which is basically a giant glowing Not Today button. For 5 seconds, your units in the area take 0 damage and get healed at a glorious 110 HP per second. That's 550 total healing, on top of full immunity. It's like wrapping your front line in bubble wrap while pumping them full of spinach. The only downside? It doesn't work well on super mobile troops like Goose Riders who refuse to stay in one place long enough to benefit. But for everyone else, this spell turns a crumbling defense into an unbreakable wall. Then there's Tornado, and wow, is it a spectacle. For 12 full seconds, this swirling death storm rolls around the battlefield, dealing 40 damage per second to anything it touches. That's a whopping 480 damage total. But wait, there's more. It also pulls enemies in, clumping them together like scared sheep in a vacuum cleaner. This makes it perfect for setting up combo plays or just thinning out hordes like their leaves in autumn. It even hits bosses like a truck, unless it's someone annoying like Volcar, who turns invulnerable mid-phase. Boo Volcar. The beauty of these spells isn't just raw power, it's timing. Used too early, you've wasted them. Too late, you've lost the fight. But if you can hit that perfect window where your units are almost overwhelmed and the enemy's just starting to flood in, casting Last Stand or Tornado feels like pulling Excalibur from a stone, and then using it to clear out rush hour traffic. Honestly, these spells are so good they almost feel like cheating. Not in the oops I broke the game way, but in the this is what winning should feel like way. When the drop gods smile upon you and hand you one of these beauties, your whole run shifts. Suddenly, late game waves don't feel impossible. Bosses go from terrifying to, meh, I've got a spell for that. So yeah, if you see Last Stand or Tornado in your spell list, clear a slot and build your loadout around them. They don't just help you win, they help you dominate. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.